right. I'm not super computer
You
friendly.
you good? You up and running?
I'm good.
Okay, well we're going, Justin, man. I appreciate you making time today, brother.
Yeah, thanks. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Well, I just saw your post in the private Facebook group that you're coming off the norovirus. The whole family is.
Oh, it was horrific. Don't wish that on anyone.
Oh, was that your first encounter with that thing?
I think it's the first where every single person in the household had it at the same time.
Oh my
Um, I,
goodness,
I've
man.
I've I've had something, or the wife's had something, or one of the kids, but never everyone all at once.
Oh, I had it once in my life, but it was a while ago. It was probably I mean, I bet it was 7 years ago or more, quite a while ago, and it knocked everybody down. Kids got it. I remember, one of our kids are 3.5, 13, and 15 now, but one of them was like, I don't know, like in a booster. I can't remember what they were in, but it was a while ago, but they're still like in a booster, and they just couldn't hold it. Like wherever we were in the car, they couldn't hold. I wasn't in the car at this time, luckily, but my wife was like, I guess you just gotta go, buddy. And there was just a tsunami of feces in the back seat, like,
Yeah. The only silver lining is we were all home, but it happened overnight. So everyone was up all night running to and from the bathroom or
oh,
trying to. I had bowls set up everywhere for the boys, and like if I couldn't help them, I'm just like trying to give words of encouragement from my own bathroom, like you're gonna make it. It'll be okay.
so and nothing to do but just wait it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was the goal was just stay hydrated. So.
Oh my God. Do you think everyone is over the hump?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody's back to feeling normal. Stomach's still a little off, but nobody's leaking any liquid, so we're
Oh my
good.
goodness. What part of the country do you live in?
I'm all the way on the East Coast out in Delaware.
Oh, in Delaware. Okay. All right.
So like sandwiched between like PA and Maryland.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's the weather like now? Is it freezing cold?
Yeah, we've had like super frigid, like single digit temps the last like 4 days. And then it's supposed to warm up like to like 40s, I think, this weekend.
Well, maybe, due to having the norovirus, we can get to this later, but maybe it's reduced your strength to that of a level of a normal human because you're just a ridiculously strong normal. We can get to that in a bit. But
Sure.
you get yourself 3 kids, so you're busy.
Yeah, yeah, to say the least. I'm currently sitting in our homeschool classroom, so like it's a mess of all the artwork and whatnot.
Oh yeah, you are definitely busy. And you're a little bit about your fitness journey that you sent me. There's some really interesting stuff that I want to chat about. Um, but I'm fascinated the fact that you said basically the majority of your life you've worked in like physically demanding outside occupations. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, you're living in an area of the country that is not just warm and sunny all the time.
No, no, we get a good bit of everything, which is kind of nice. I like it. I like the change.
So you said you worked for your father. He had a landscaping company and a
Mhm.
hardscape company. You did about 11 years of that work.
Yeah.
How old were you during that 11 years?
How old was I?
Yeah, like from when to when in your
I
life you worked for him?
started. I mean, I didn't have any plans after high school, and my dad basically said, "I'll see you Monday," and I graduated on a Friday. Um, so I started working for him maybe when I was 16 over the summers. And then I started right after high school. So I was 18 out of high school and then stuck with that until, I was probably almost 24. I was probably 25 because then I went into the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And then I did my time there, going through training. And then when I got back from training, I decided, since I was going to be in the reserves, I wanted to do something different. So I ended up
Yeah.
getting into cell tower climbing.
I'm very curious to talk about that as well. But that 11 years with the landscaping company, what did that what did that entail? I mean, we talking, is it just you planted stuff? Are you doing grass? Is it irrigation? Like,
No, so my dad, we we did a lot of landscaping, that's great. That's easy work. Digging holes isn't too bad, unless you're in some really rocky territory, in which case it can be miserable. But I really enjoyed hardscaping, so making things out of stone, brick, block.
Okay.
And that's about as hard labor as you can get. I mean, I can remember building a patio at some point, and I moved like 22 tons of stone in about 5 hours with a wheelbarrow. Um, Now I had help. I had a couple other
Right.
guys on the crew with me, but like I shoveled stone for like I don't know 4 or 5 hours straight. It was a good time. I look back fondly, but I'm glad that I don't do it anymore. I don't think my body could do it.
Is that one of those, if you're doing that all day long, bending over, shoveling, moving dirt, wheelbarrows, picking up stones, setting them down, is that the sort of thing, maybe you were a younger man then, so but if do people go home and work out after that, or are you so physically smoked that you just plant it on the couch and you just wake up the next day and repeat?
Yeah, I pretty much, after a day like that or a day moving block and brick, you're done. That's it. You get home, you sit on the couch, and a lot of times you'd like barely get your boots untied and you'd be falling asleep.
I can
Um,
I can believe that. And the people that you worked with, were they of all different ages? I guess like is that something people do as an entry level thing and they move it's like it's transitory in nature? Do some people do that for 20 years as a full-time occupation?
I mean, so I was, I started out as the young guy on the crew, but I stayed with my dad's company for so long that I was eventually one of the older guys. But we had guys that were in their 40s and 50s doing that work. Um, and they were just tough, tough guys. I mean,
Some
like
hard dudes.
men, just men. Yeah.
Right.
And we'd have people come and go, and I could tell after a little while, like who would make it and who wouldn't, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It was pretty easy, like you stick a guy on the wheelbarrow because it's a pretty easy gig, and you're like, all right, if he can make it with a wheelbarrow full of stone and do it for the whole day, he'll probably be all right. Um, but
One.
yeah, my uncles worked for my father as well, and they're all 20 years older than I am, and they were doing it when I was younger. So yeah,
Oh yeah, some rugged individuals. And anytime I see people around here doing landscape work, it's hard work. They're doing it rain or shine.
yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. And it seems to be usually accompanied, like lunch seems to be some sort of a large submarine sandwich from some sort of a local shop, a big bag of Lay's potato chips or Doritos, and some like a liter of Sprite or whatnot.
Oh, yeah, I tried to it's tough to eat well when you're, like, working outdoors all the time just because like, you
Oh,
can't keep stuff cold.
dude, the day that you described, I wouldn't be craving a chef salad. I'd be craving like, I would give me the biggest sandwich you got.
Yeah, I mean, you'd eat whatever. I stray from soda. That's just like a weakness. I will have a soda on occasion, but, like, not at work. Definitely not in the heat of summer.
Hmm.
Plenty of water. Gatorade when Gatorade was decent, but Gatorade's nothing but corn syrup anymore, so I stay away from that too.
Did you know how to do all that hardscaping, like masonry stonework, or was it just learning on the job and eventually it got better and better till the customer didn't complain?
So my dad, he like grew up in the industry. Like he went to school for like horticulture, and he had done landscaping for decades before I ever touched a shovel. So he kind of just showed me what he knew, and we grew as a company and as a family because we would go to trade shows and see new products and learn how to use the new products and new equipment. And hardscaping's really exploded in the past like 25, 30 years. From like used to be normal red brick and stone was your only options, and now there's hundreds of different types of manufacturers of brick and block. It's kind of crazy, how much different it is.
Is your current yard one that your father would be proud of?
The front yard, sure. The backyard where the kids play, no. But even growing up, our household did not have the manicured, perfect landscape like you would
True.
imagine. I think at the end of the day, when you do it, like the last thing is like, I should do my own yard. My dad was like
Mhm.
too tired at that point.
100%. So, what motivated a change for you to kind of look at the Marine Corps when you were 25? It's a little bit later than most folks join.
Yeah, no, it was. I just felt like I needed I needed a kick in the pants is what I needed. I felt like I was kind of stuck. I felt like working for my dad. I wasn't really. I didn't see myself enjoying taking over the business, and I didn't. I didn't enjoy the idea of being in that industry forever. So I was like, let's shake things up a bit. I went to a recruiter and I said, "What do you got?" And you know, they talked to me, and I ended up being recruited by somebody I went to high school with, which was
No
really
kidding.
funny. Yeah, so he was already, I think he was a sergeant at the time. So like here I am, we're the same age, and I'm just going in, and he's been in for, you know, 8 years or something at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and it did help. It was one of those things where even having the experience to put on a resume of some military experience looked good. And that's what ended up getting me my job into the cell tower world, was having that on
Yes.
there.
I mean, pros and cons, there's pros and cons to the military, right? I mean, nothing's all roses and nothing's all dark clouds.
Very true.
There's both, but a lot of the good is just that good old-fashioned order and discipline and, task accomplishment, teamwork, getting stuff done, learning how to
Yep.
give orders, learning how to take orders. Nobody cares if you don't want to do something, you do, it has to happen. Like
Yeah.
that's really useful life stuff right
Oh
there when
yeah.
you go
My
into
my
after.
kids don't like it.
Yeah, 100, dude, 100%. So you were a fueler. I mean,
Mhm.
is it just exactly what it sounds like? What is that occupation or MOS?
So it was 1391. We were in an engineer support battalion. So what we would do is we would go out and uh, ideally in say like early days of Iraq or Afghanistan, they'd go out and set up a fuel farm,
Mm,
maybe just outside of base or in an area that you'd be operating, and they would set up a fuel point for trucks, tanks. They'd set up air refueling points for helicopters. That's a little trickier though, because when you get into refueling aircraft, as Tanner probably knows, the fuel's got to be super clean, and that's difficult in the desert. So they didn't want to refuel aircraft a lot of times outside of base, just because you can't guarantee that the fuel is perfect.
gotcha. That's
And if
Finnish
it,
pilots.
yeah, I know, it's like they're a bunch of babies. I
Bunch
don't
of
get
pretty boys.
it. Yeah, so we would set up fuel points, and it's not super glamorous. It's kind of tough and dirty work, and it requires a lot of manual labor because we have these gigantic bladders, which are, imagine a huge waterbed bladder, and
Mm,
that's what you fill up with fuel, and it looks like that. And you would basically either dig a pit or have machinery build like berms for you, and then you would lay your bladder in there and run all your hoses to your pumps. And basically, the berms are there in case the bladder breaks to hold fuel from leaking everywhere.
gotcha. Man, it sounds like it's right up your alley of just demanding physical labor. I mean,
It's grunt
you
work.
choose that? Does the Marine Corps let you put in like a wish list of what you'd like to do, or do they say, congratulations, here's what we need?
So, kind of that. You could pick stuff based upon your GT scores and all that. You could see what you would fit into. However, when I was enlisting, they basically said that there was like a really small amount of slots for active duty, which is actually what I had wanted. And they
Mm-hmm.
said you're more likely going to end up in a reserve slot, because I don't know if they were drawing down their numbers at the time and they just weren't looking to fill a bunch of slots. Recruiters are weird and they have to fill numbers in a
Right.
certain way. So I got stuck in an engineer support battalion. And originally they told me, like, you're going to be a combat engineer. And I was like, cool, I'm going to blow stuff up. That sounds great.
Right.
And then you go all the way through boot camp. And at the end of boot camp, they're telling everybody their MOS. And they're like, Del Calo, you're going to be a fueler. And I was like, what? A what? And I had no idea. So, then off they ship you to your, school, and I was like, I don't. This isn't what I was told I was doing. So, yeah, I got told where to go.
Oh, yep. I mean, that's usually the military way, right? Like, well,
Yeah,
we might ask you, but at the end of the day, you're gonna go where we need you.
yeah. We get voluntold a lot. And
100%. So during your time in the military, you kind of started working out, you got to take the PFTs and all that good stuff, and maybe started to kind of get an interest in physical culture or working out?
Very much so. I mean, I always liked to be active. I climbed a lot before, just like rock climbing before I ever went in the military. But then once we got in there and like physical fitness is part of your job, I was like, well, I might as well take this a bit more seriously. So, we do the normal bro splits at the gym, go do back and buys, chest and tries, all that kind of fun stuff.
When you
Um,
when you're in the Marine Corps, doesn't mess around. Isn't there run 3 miles?
yeah, it's a 3 mile run.
Uh, Wheelhouse for you.
No, I am not a runner.
I
My
know.
best time was right out of boot camp, and I think it was like just around 19 minutes.
That's cooking.
Uh, as it was, I'm probably like 40 pounds heavier now.
I was gonna say you have an appreciation for how fast you were then, huh?
Yeah, we had a guy in our company. He ran a 15-minute 3 mile.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy. And then some
yeah.
good old strict pull-ups, right, for the PFT?
That's all we did was pull ups, strict pull ups. Yep. And like they don't. There's like it a full dead hang. There's no. You're not allowed to cheat even an ounce. Somebody's gonna catch you.
Right.
And then sit ups.
Yep. I tell you what, I mean, you put down a smoking 3 mile, you knock out 20 dead hangs, and you do some sit-ups. Not bad.
No, I know. Like every time you and like I think when we did the PFT, I think you were only supposed to have about 5 minutes between events. Like once you finished one to move on to the next. It never quite worked out that way. As you know, in the military, things don't quite go as smoothly as you ever want them to.
Hmm.
So you usually got a little bit more of a break. But yeah, going from the run right to the pull ups was usually pretty awful.
Yeah, I agreed. And during your time as a reservist, um, did you wander into a CrossFit gym then, or was it post-military?
So it was while I was still in the reserves. I had some friends that opened a gym,
Okay.
and they opened a gym in like the hopes of they opened like a powerlifting strongman gym. So when I started going there, I did that. I powerlifted for a while, and I did some of the strongman stuff on occasion just to play with it because it was different.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you said you dipped your toe into powerlifting and did some 5-through-1s. I'm curious to talk to you about that because you're a very strong individual, and if you're too humble to give out your numbers, I'll give them out, which is you know, just perusing some of the posts you've done there over the last couple of months. We did 5 sets of 4 reps deadlift. You pulled all those at 405 pounds. It's monster lifts. We had that terrible back squat rep range of set of 15, set of 10,
Oh,
set of 5.
that was
We
gnarly.
did, you did the 15 at 275 pounds, the 10 at 325, and the 5 at 375 pounds. I mean, so you're really, really strong. So I'm curious, what was your experience when you were just immersed in just the lifting culture, powerlifting, all day long? Who cares what's happening with my engine? Let's get strong. And then how has that transition been for somebody like yourself that was immersed in that to now doing something like Linchpin where we're not just going to lift heavy every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that starts lifting, you love that heavy barbell. I mean, who doesn't? You clang and bang. Like you love nothing more than hearing those weights hit the ground during a deadlift. Um, and it was fun, but I kind of felt myself getting burned out, especially after 3 or 4 cycles of the 5-3-1 program I did. It just kind of felt stale, and so they started doing a CrossFit type class at the gym, and
Okay.
I would watch, and I'm just like, all right, I might be able to do some of that. And then I'd see him like do double unders, and I'm like, I don't know about that part, but I could probably do the pull ups. And I had no idea about Olympic lifts at that point. So I just decided, I was like, you know what? I told my coach, one of the owners, I said, hey, I was like, can I try one of those classes one morning? And he was like, yeah, come on in and give it a go. And I mean, I was dead last in everything for the longest time, because my engine was like not there. I mean, I would run coming up to a PFT or a CFT just to kind of prep myself,
Sure. Right.
but I never like stuck with running to like make it a full-time effort. So when I came into class, I was winded a lot.
Yeah, yeah, sure, of course. And isn't it interesting, which maybe some people from the outside looking in who maybe just lift or just whatever and don't do like a mixed modality thing, it's shocking when you do a mixed modality workout that has like a weightlifting component and maybe a bit of a run, and hey, there's going to be a box jump and a burpee or something, and they're all done together. How fast that pure strength just evaporates when your heart rate is at 175 beats a minute. You're like,
Yes.
where did my deadlift go? Where did my front squat go? Like it's a different beast when you start putting them all together.
Oh yeah, I can remember like distinctly doing some workouts. I think we did. It was one of my first times doing DT,
Oh,
um,
okay, yeah.
and it absolutely smacked me down. And I was like, coming into it thinking, well, I have a good deadlift. I was like, and this isn't anywhere near even like my 50%. I was like, it shouldn't be
Hmm.
bad. I could not have been more wrong.
We've all had that experience.
Yeah, and I still love DT to this day. It is still probably one of my top 5 favorite barbell workouts. But yeah, it was a rude awakening for me. But we did some other really fun stuff. We had a member lose like 60 pounds.
Oh,
So
wow. That's awesome.
yeah, so to celebrate, our coach was like, "We're gonna do a bear complex with 60 pounds." And it was a death by. So it was just one every minute and then add one until you can't do it anymore. And at this point, I had a little bit of an engine. I was getting there, and I ended up making it. I think I was the only man standing at the round of 8, and then I did the round of 9, and I got like maybe 7 into the round of 10. And people were like, "How could you do that?" And I was like, I don't know.
I
I was like,
guess.
yeah, I was like, you guys were cheering, so I got excited, and that's all it took.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this, and I'm not leading you to an answer. I don't care if your answer is great or terrible or whatever. Like I'm genuinely curious. Because we tell people like, look, there's a difference between being just a good runner and being fit. There's a difference between being just good at gymnastics and being fit. Being just a good lifter and being fit. Like being fit is a bit of a compromise of all of those things. Now,
Yeah.
compromise doesn't mean mediocre, but compromise means compromise. So if you come to me and you say you want to get fitter and it's your buddy from the Marine Corps who can run 3 miles in 15 minutes, I'm going to say, great, I can get you fitter. Your run's probably going to slow down a bit, but I'm going to double your deadlift and double your back squat. It's going to be worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what happened to you? Do you remember like what were your like, hey, I'm just lifting, this is what I can squat and dead, and now I'm pursuing fitness and here's what I can squat and dead. How do those two compare or contrast?
Actually, all of my big lift numbers are higher now than when I just focused on lifting.
Oh, I'm actually I'm stoked to hear that, but I think a lot of people would think you're lying, you're not remembering correctly, or how in the world can that be true? That can't possibly be true, right? I mean, what's been your journey?
So I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that it's tough to push yourself all the time just lifting, where you're not really making yourself do something truly hard.
Hmm,
So, like, you go through your 5-3-1, and at a certain point, you're just going through the motions. You're doing the lifts. Yeah, you're following, going up whatever the percentage is that week. And, yeah, you're going to do an AMRAP at the end and see how it goes. But you're not really forcing yourself to get into that realm where you're uncomfortable. And I
hmm,
think when you break into that and you're making yourself uncomfortable, but you're also doing the lifting portions while being uncomfortable, when it comes to those pure lifts, you're able to find yourself digging deeper more easily.
dang. Interesting. Yeah, I can buy that. And again, there's probably also something to that wonderfully beneficial but highly misunderstood aspect of just variance, right? If
Yeah.
you're gonna attack your hamstrings in so many different ways, your quads in
Yes.
so many different ways, that there's probably some way that you neglected for years, and we're gonna hit it.
Oh yeah, I would say for sure that you did the same you do the same, exercises to for accessories for all your stuff. Like I would just do Nordics or, glute ham raises and
which are wonderful.
oh yeah, they're great. Bulgarians, which I still will do on occasion, even if they're not programmed, just because I have the access to the equipment. But I think it gets stale, and when it gets stale, you kind of get bored, even if you don't acknowledge it. Your body
Yeah.
is like, okay, this is the same thing, whatever. We can keep doing it.
And man, there's some non-barbell stuff that I don't know why it's not a part of more like classic lifting programs like that. Like, man, if you want to get strong, go sprint. You want to feel your hamstrings and glutes light up like you just did a 20 rep back squat, like go really sprint. You will
Yeah,
develop some posterior chain strength and you'll be shocked at how sore your abs are. And you're like, what did I do the last couple of days? I just ran. It's like, yeah, you ran
yeah,
real fast. It's potent, real potent
I
stuff.
know. The first couple times that I did like let's see what some of the 400 repeats or the 100s that we've done,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
just like,
man.
those are, I mean, I can remember like stumbling off of the air runner and I'm like, that was something.
Devastating. That's
Oh,
that's one of
yeah,
the like almost like a secret password of like who's been initiated and who hasn't, right? If you see a day that's like the 10 by 100 meter dashes or the 8 by 200s, and somebody will be like, "That's it?" Like,
yeah, yeah.
you haven't done it before.
Yeah, that's it. It's yeah, just go in with that idea and see how how it goes for you.
Yep, that's okay, that's fascinating and it's very cool because people, people are rightfully so fascinated with individuals who are strong. I mean, they
Yeah,
get questions about it. They want to follow in their footsteps. Most people couldn't care less if so-and-so has a great 800-meter run time, even though that's so beneficial. So-and-so
right.
has 27 strict pull-ups. Boring. This guy's got a monster back squat. I'm fascinated. What do they do? It's always interested to hear, you know, um, from strong individuals what they've done and how, mixed modalities, not like it's not going to drive the needle forward for you as well. So I think it's very beneficial for folks. When was it that you then, I guess, post Marine Corps, shifted, got out into the telecommunications field? Is that correct?
So I was still in the reserves, and
Oh, okay.
I had applied for a job that my brother-in-law was working in, and it was cell tower climber. So they basically go up and install all the equipment on cell phone towers, so you can call and use your cell phones. Um, and Originally, I had applied to be a welder for them because I had welding skills, and I was like, well, I might as well put that on there too because I'm sure they need welding on these towers.
Mm-hmm.
And they did hire me on the premise to weld, but I didn't weld ever in like 6 years of working on the towers, which was fine because it didn't make or break the job, and it didn't change anything for me in the end.
And what's that job like? Because you said it had its highs and lows, it was cowboy-esque, and like, give me the rundown reminiscent over that.
Yeah, so working on cell phone towers is it is like the Wild West. Like you basically would go out as a crew of maybe 3 to 5 guys, and we would take all of our equipment, usually up some, well, out here on the East Coast, I'm sure definitely on the West Coast too. You'd go up some crazy mountain road and get to the top of a mountain or a hill and unload all your equipment, and then somebody starts by carrying the rope up the tower, which we would hook to our winch line. And once you get the rope up to the top of the tower, you start bringing up tools and equipment. And we were basically left on our own to do what we needed to do until the job was done. And then you would just report back to the boss and say, hey, everything's hooked up.
How nice is that?
It
Left
wasn't bad.
alone.
We did have to have quality control. So we would do what's called a closeout package, which was basically like photos and videos of everything we installed, and you would send it to AT&T or Verizon or whoever we were working for, and they would just check and make sure that everything was done to their spec.
Mm-hmm.
um, we did get in trouble once or twice. We climbed a tower we were working on, and we decided to fly a pirate flag on the tower.
Incredible. Sure.
Yeah, so we put this flag at the top of this tower, and it's flying up there, skull and crossbones, and we're working, and we're going to be there for a week or two. So we thought nothing of it and left the flag up there. Well, somebody locally saw the flag and thought some kids had climbed the tower, and they called the police. And then the police got in touch with the tower owner. And then the tower owner called my boss and was like, there's a pirate flag on the tower. What's going on?
Like,
And
really?
we got some emails and phone calls very quickly.
Oh, I
um,
bet.
Yeah. So, but it was, you were just kind of left to your own devices, go out, drive around, and, you'd be on the road for a week or two at a time, come home for a couple days, and then go back out and do it again.
I don't know if it's similar to, I didn't realize it was cell phone towers that you're climbing. I don't know if it's similar to, we've got a guy in our neighborhood who works for like the local like power company. And
Okay.
he's up on the, got the truck with the picker basket in it, and rain or shine doesn't matter. They're usually out there because some terrible windstorm or whatever storm happened. So he's out there in the freezing rain, pouring down rain, 11 p.m. All the homes have no power. He and this crew are out there working on electricity and in the
Yeah.
downpour. And it looks to me from the outside like a rugged, demanding, often difficult, potentially miserable, dangerous job that if you had a good crew of dudes with you, you could probably make the best of it, have some great like
Oh,
gallows
yeah.
humor and dark humor amongst each other and like make the
Yeah.
best.
Most of the guys that I worked with were either had been in the military or were like I was in the reserves at the time. So like the dark humor was rampant. We would always bring a speaker up on the tower and blast music while we're working. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of traveling. It was sometimes I worked in some awful weather. I worked right off the coast of Lake Erie in like January.
Oh
And
my goodness.
we were we were working at maybe 350 feet off the ground, and it was like I think the temp on the ground was negative 35. So we had like every layer of clothing imaginable on.
Dude, is that the sort of job? I don't want to say is it easy to get, but like, do you have to know somebody? Is it a union job? Like, how do you get your foot in the door?
There's a lot of turnover depending on the company, just because people kind of bounce around a lot. You'll work at one. I worked at the same place for 6 years, but a lot of people wouldn't work anywhere more than a couple years because they could always find somebody willing to pay them a little more and a little
I
more, so they
see.
would
I see.
move a lot.
I got a question, selfishly, I got a question for you about this. So we've got, three kids, and our oldest is 15. And I don't know, not that I knew what I was going to do at 15, but I don't know what he's going to do. He's not a school kid. He does, I mean, we might be able to convince him to go to college, but I don't know. I think he would struggle and like hate it and all that stuff. And so we've been talking to him about other things that you can do. And it's really cool that it seems like the trades are like having like a rebirth in the United
They
States
are.
recently, which is so cool. Like, I think there's so many things that I think would be far more up his alley than some of the traditional, you got to go to college and get a degree, then you're going to sit in a cubicle. Like, what would be your advice to a young person, having worked some of those jobs? Is it, you're going to earn yourself a good wage for you and your family? Is it more transitory? I mean, you've lived it. What's your take?
Man, so that's a good question. And I've already decided at this point that, when my boys are old enough, I'm like, look, I'll be honest, the trade is for me the way to go. I was not ever an academic. Um, and not having student loans in this day and age is great.
Amen to that.
Most of the trade schools you can get into, and they if you find some of these schools, they offer multiple different ones. I would personally, knowing what I know now, I would pick and stick with a welding career.
Hmm.
Welding is one you can really um, you can really key in on like a specific type of welding, and you can make an absolutely phenomenal amount of money depending on what you decide to do with it. Like guys that weld for say nuclear power plants,
Huh.
they make several hundreds of thousands of dollars in certain areas. um
Interesting. Nobody would
yeah,
have guessed that from a welder.
Yeah, oh yeah. I had a buddy in the Marine Corps that ended up going into underwater welding, which is super
Yeah.
dangerous. Um,
Okay.
but they make like $300-400 an hour.
Wow. Interesting. That's crazy.
Welding's cool though because there's so much you can do with it. You can end up working on anything from nuclear power plants to anything made out of metal. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and some of those more riskier things that you're talking about, and those are probably going to be always in demand and always, looking for qualified people to get out there and willing to do that
Very
that
much so.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I love trade work. I think it's what this country was built upon. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what we desperately need again. Um,
100%. 100%. And
so,
I think it's going to be a much better fit for our oldest son than almost anything. Like, again, I don't know where he'll land, but I think a conversation with him about the trades is like makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons.
yeah, if you need, I can talk to him about whatever, if you,
I think I very well, yeah, very well might do that. Yeah, we'll see where he goes, but he's also just a social creature too. I mean, like what you said, having a good crew of 3 or 4 dudes and like the music's on, you're working hard. Like if he was like stuck in the corner of a cubicle working for H&R Block, going over tax returns, I think he'd jump out a window.
yeah, no, I couldn't do it. I know I couldn't. I now what you talked about earlier with your neighbor working, I do something similar to that. I work with a truck and whatnot. Um,
Yeah. So what is it? You've transitioned now to what are you doing?
I'm basically now the electrical lineman in the group, if there are any. They're going to probably crucify me for this because we also call ourselves linemen, telecommunications linemen. Um, I install and maintain basically the network for one of the big internet providers. Um, and it's I didn't have a difficult job, different transition into it wasn't so bad. I had to get a CDL, which was fine. I recommend that to anybody that's looking for work. You get a CDL, you're already head and shoulders above
Hmm.
somebody else that might be applying. And it's been fun work, but now I'm nice and local. I don't ever really leave the county I'm in.
Oh, that's nice with 3 kids.
Yeah, it really is. The traveling once we had one was, started to kind of make things kind of rough at home. And then when we had two, I was like, all right, it's time to start looking for something local. And I got very lucky. The job I have now is a union position, which, plenty of people have pros and cons about unions, and I do too,
Sure.
even after working in one.
Interesting.
But
Fair enough.
yeah, but it's a good line of work, and I can't complain about it. And hopefully I can retire doing this, which
Well,
is the ultimate goal. Like I'd love to one day not have to work.
right. Yeah, exactly. Precisely. Well, how has it been for you? Um, Now at the end here, maybe we'll talk about fitness for 2 or 3 minutes. What how's it been working out at home? Are you the sort of individual that, you know, is it difficult to walk out into the garage or wherever solo, or how has that been transitioning?
Well, I'm lucky enough that I do have a great YMCA that I use for most of my workouts. But I've
So
slowly,
that's what I see in your Facebook post. That's where you are.
yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
it's a great facility. I can't
Oh, they
say
got
enough
lifting
good things.
platforms and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, part of it is I've been there so long. I kind of request things now. And I'm like, hey, can we get this, or can we get this? And now we have ski ergs and bike ergs and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I love the community. It's wonderful. People are always like, "What are you doing?" Because it's kind of crazy. We see you working out, and it's always something ridiculous. And I'm like, I follow this programming, and I've told a few people, and I had a couple people try it out. Um, but I do work out here at home too, and I've slowly collected pieces. I found a rower on Facebook Marketplace. Got a
Nice.
got a first deal. It's like 23 years old, and it had like 50,000 meters on it or something.
Those things last forever.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it was barely used. I couldn't couldn't have got a better deal. But
Okay, I'm gonna hit just once we finish up, I got a small window of time before I gotta grab my daughter, and it's not gonna be enough time for me to warm up for the
I
actual power snatch. So I'm gonna go do the dumbbell option real quick, and that'll be that.
That's what I did, and it'll get you where you need to be. It was fantastic.
Uh, I guess in closing, one of the things you said um, about your biggest lessons while being at Linchpin, and maybe you could say why was it one of the biggest lessons for you, was the removing of ego. What did you mean by that? And
I mean, when I was just powerlifting, you're always chasing a number. Like, and it didn't matter if you listened to your body or not. I would read what my programming said, and I would do it regardless.
Mm,
And it took a long while for me to realize that, like, you know what, even on days when it says I'm supposed to do, you know, 3 sets of 5 at 80% today, I'm not feeling it, but I would do it anyway. And usually it didn't pay off.
right.
So having that ability now to like walk in, like as much as I wanted to do the actual snatch program today, I knew my body was just not ready for it. And I enjoy lifting heavy. And I was like, I'm going to do myself a disservice today if I go in there and actually try to put up what I would probably normally put up. And I was like, you know what?
Hmm.
So the ability to take that ego and push it out the door and say, Leo's the option, Neo's the option. It's been great. It really, I think, has paid dividends as far as like my personal physical health, as far as not getting injured.
That's very cool, man. Again, it's a long game that we're playing,
It
especially now.
is.
You got to be around for your kids. They're going to want to roughhouse and play with you for years to come. So you got to be ready for that.
I'm really excited to be part of the linchpin. I call it's like an experiment in my mind. I'm like, how long are we going to have this group? Because it'll be cool to see years down the road where people are and what has happened for people. So I'm excited to be part of that like data set.
I think about that as well, quite frankly. I'll be 50 this year, and the years just keep coming,
Yeah.
regardless whether I
Yeah.
want to or not. And the workouts don't change. Like I'm still programming at 50, the same workouts I would have programmed for myself at 35. I just scale if I need to scale. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it doesn't change. My fitness IQ has made it adaptable. So, we could conceivably do this forever. And I think about that, like, are we going to be just watching each other for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 years? And like,
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty wild.
No, I'm excited to see what happens. Like, especially the big lifters like Tanner and Chris out in California, like guys that are really pulling some big weight. Like, that's awesome. Like, how long can we do that?
There's just some ridiculous psychopath. It's funny. We've got everything from beginners to advanced, people in their 20s, people in their 60s. Um, but some of the freaks are freaks. Like we got
Yeah.
some freaks out there. And speaking of one, I'm actually in the midst of emailing him right now to try to convince him to get on. I think I finally talked to Ben G in France.
I was hoping that's who you would say.
Yeah, yeah. So he's, he obviously French is his primary language. And I don't speak a lick of French, but I've heard from inside sources that his English is far better than he gives himself credit
Oh,
for.
it's better than he'll let on. I send him
Yeah,
workouts all the time and he'll just text me back and say, I don't speak English.
yeah. But he's like one of those people that no one's ever heard of him. He's just this, regular citizen dad out in
Yeah.
France, working out like in his basement or garage with like modest gear, and he's a savage.
Yes, I know. I tell people all the time, and I'm like, this guy, you wouldn't believe what this guy can do. I'm like, we do these air bike workouts, and he does the. I'm like, he could power a town with the output he's making in that machine.
Did you and it's funny because when you first sometimes you see some of his times, it can't be real, like he's lying. And then there's Matteo visited him in France for like a special visit. Did you see that workout video they did together?
Yeah,
And that was one of the ones it's like he went from like movement to movement to movement, unbroken, and then like it ended after there was like a set of 50 double unders, unbroken, 30 wall balls, unbroken, and then it was
yeah,
10 power clean and jerks of 165, and he just did those touch and go unbroken, and then like slap hands with Mateo, and I was like, oh, wow,
yeah.
right. This is all legit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had the pleasure of working out with Mateo earlier last year. We met up in New York, and it was great. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the times that Ben puts up, and when I've seen videos, I'm just like, yeah, no, none of this is made up. He's
No,
just a freak.
God bless them. Well, I guess I'll let you get back to your family, but any closing thoughts or lessons learned or advice to share with somebody who's maybe listening to this and they got a few kids, they're busy, things have gotten a bit too hectic, and their fitness hasn't been a priority as much as it should.
Yeah, the biggest thing I'd say for anybody that's just new to the parenting realm, or maybe not even new, just like adding another one and life just got more complicated, would be first, just give yourself a little grace because you're in a whole new realm of life and nothing can quite prepare you for what you get into when you have a kid. So, a little bit of grace goes a long way, and do what you can when you can, even if it's 15 minutes while the baby naps, or
Yeah,
they're in the tub and somebody's watching them in the tub. Squeeze in what you can, and it all counts. you
very
know
true. 100%. I mean, if you got 15 minutes, you're not going to establish a one rep max deadlift, but if you do whatever, shuttle sprints and air squats for 15 minutes, you're going
yeah.
to know.
Yep, yeah, you do 15 minutes of, 5 burpees on the minute, whatever, you're gonna get something done.
And just try not to let the nutrition slide too much.
Yeah, that can be tough, thankfully, my wife's a great cook, but, the nutrition when you're, like, struggling to keep everybody in line is tough.
100%. But man, Justin, I appreciate you as a part of Linchpin. I appreciate you sharing your story, and don't be surprised if I reach back out to you to pick your brain about some of the stuff with the trades and my son and all that.
Anytime. Hey, thanks, Pat, it's been great.
All right, brother. Well, enjoy your day, and I will see you online.
Awesome, take care.